What's up, everybody? Eric Wilson, Sports Arena, alongside Ruth Caguias, Ruth the Truth, Sports Talk Florida. Look at her sporting her shirt right there. Look at her. And, of course, NBC Sports Radio, 1060, The Sports Hangover in Arizona, Mr. Michael Carotenuto. What's going on, y'all? How's everybody hanging in? Everybody all right?
Doing good. Quarantine is almost over. I think we're coming to the end of this COVID.
Is there a vaccine yet? Because if there's not, people ain't leaving their house.
No, there's not, but New York started phase one. I mean, Arizona's been into phase one, so.
I think Florida is going into phase two. I think as of Friday, we are at 50% capacity in all restaurants, all that kind of. And they opened Universal last week, too. I wonder how that's going.
Nice.
Yeah.
Still a line just to get into the door. Trust me, as a season pass holder, I'm dying to go back, but I think I'm going to take the rest of this year off before I really do anything. Although, I will say that I'm happy that, and call me a nerd if you want to, I'm happy that the bowling alleys are opening up because I'm a bowling guy. Have been since I was a kid.
You and I agreed on that.
Yes.
I never got to go bowling in LA that time, but I love, yes, bowling rocks.
Yeah. So anytime you want to get your butt whooped, Mike, you just let me know, baby.
Okay.
I will take that challenge from anybody.
Mike, I'm gonna let you handle that because I'm not a bowler.
Well,
not my forte.
You'll definitely have to be there because I'll have to come to Florida because when Eric comes out west, he doesn't, his phone doesn't work and stuff like that. So
he doesn't know how to call people.
I'll come to Florida.
I'm not going to live that down until I officially invite Mike to Vegas. We're going to make a Vegas trip, Mike, okay?
All right.
We're going to make a Vegas trip.
Well, Ruthie's invited too. I'm not excluding.
That's what I'm saying.
Always down for Vegas. I'm always
That's what I'm saying.
Alex.
I know Vegas like the back of my hand. Let's go.
I mean, I don't know if you guys can keep up with me in Vegas because I know some people, but.
You know how I keep up? I fake shots sometimes.
Okay. Oh, really come on now.
Sometimes you have to do it.
No. She's like she fake shots.
Oh,
yeah, I throw it behind me.
No. Believe me, it's a marathon, not a sprint, Eric. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yep.
But,
and I'm gonna tell you just like this. This is my thing when it comes to Vegas. More importantly, when it comes to drinking, just because I don't do something doesn't mean I can't. And if we gonna start drinking, I'm gonna let y'all know right now. Don't let this gray hair and this old man fool you, boy. I'm gonna knock some back now. Hey.
Well, age is a state of mind, but yes, you're right. And it's not like you're doing shots every 5 minutes. But if we're doing shots and you fake it, well, whoever throws the shot on the floor is buying the next round.
Yeah.
You just can't get caught.
Okay. We're gonna be watching you.
Hey, you tell yourself that.
Mm-hmm.
Not like Major League Baseball players, but anyway.
All right, well, let's get into it, kids. You know what? There's a lot going on because sports is starting to come back. And I guess we should get the more difficult conversation out the way first because it is something that is going on. And I definitely want to hear from Ruth and Mike. Of course, I want to hear from y'all about this because the NFL coming back and everything that's been going on with the world as it is, the crazy world as it is. Drew Brees made comments. He then apologized for those comments because he was, I don't like to use the word attacked, but there were people, his own teammates, who were going after him hardcore about what he said, basically saying, Drew, you don't really understand. I feel like these people have kind of gotten together and hopefully they have figured this out. That being said, there's a lot of talk right now, even so far up to the commissioner, Roger Goodell, basically saying about players have the right to peacefully protest. Basically they were wrong when it came to Colin Kaepernick. And the biggest issue, of course, is taking a knee during the national anthem. So, Mike, I'm going to go to you first, and I'm going to ask you, what are your thoughts on players as a sign of peaceful protest taking a knee during the national anthem?
Well, I've had you on my show before and we talked about it. And I said, I believe in going about other ways of protesting. And I know what Drew Brees said about both his grandfathers being in World War II, as was mine. And I've had a lot of family and friends in the military. Yes, the flag does stand for, when they're saying justice. With how I was brought up, it would be very hard to kneel. And I think Drew Brees, because when Alex and I were talking about this, Eric, it's two things can be completely wrong. So all this stuff with the police and everything that's gone on, like how in this case and instances how it's been handled is completely wrong. But for everybody to gang up on Drew Brees and start, and I hear some people saying, you know, the famous phrase, oh, he's tone deaf. He didn't have to go after people that kneel, because I think if you want to be known as less tone deaf, Eric, he could have said, you know, I just can't kneel for the anthem. I believe in the cause. I believe in everything. But basically, people are, like you said, teammates went after him saying he doesn't understand. The dude's embedded in New Orleans culture. And if you've ever been down there, like, it is a phenomenal, great culture. Like, they love their Saints. But yes, this transcends above the game. He basically got bullied into stepping back in a way, in my opinion. Now, again, he did sound kind of tone deaf because he could have still supported it. So I'm not saying that, you know, oh, poor Drew Brees, let's feel sorry for Drew Brees. No, but they're all hypocrites, because you and I have talked about this before. I know Roger Goodell came out now, and now it's, you know, pushed to the forefront. But they're all hypocrites, because when Colin Kaepernick did it, I said, look, I respect the fact that he is giving more than just a name to it or just sending some money. He's been out to places. He's done things. When he was kneeling, I'm like, okay, I'm not a big fan, but I'm a good fan of the message, except for when he wore a Castro shirt, because then you're just going, I mean, that's ridiculous. But anyway, but I mean, the statements, it's true. I mean, if they want to kneel and other teammates don't, again, I wouldn't be pushed into it, but I support every part of the cause of people not being, you know, inhumanely treated. Anybody, though, you know, and it's frustrating because it takes this happening to George Floyd in all these communities. And, you know, you get these people that are such, like, okay, Shannon Sharp was saying that, I mean, he was like literally saying Drew Brees should retire because he's so out of touch. Like, the flag means it's different things for different people. And yes, the overlying message of it, but he could support the cause. But yeah, I think the way he said it, I mean, the reporter asked the question, of course, and Drew Brees has always been a straight shooter from what we know. I mean, I did personally meet him during the Pro Bowl when it was here in Arizona, but it's not like I talked to him for a long time. I talked to him for a little bit. But, you know, all this stuff with Colin Kaepernick, people saying, oh, Kaepernick was right. He was right. None of these players were standing by him before. I mean, okay, when I say no.
Hold on. We don't wait. Hold on, Mike. Malcolm Jenkins stood by him.
Right.
Malcolm Jenkins has never deterred.
That's what I was going to say. There was like 5 to 10 players maybe that knelt. Before.
Maybe publicly, but privately, we don't know what people were saying.
No, that's what I'm saying. They didn't support what he was doing on the field. They were still standing because of other pressures, and Colin Kaepernick was a lightning rod. I'm saying that Colin Kaepernick was ahead of the curve and was absolutely right. And this is a man that, again, he's still with the lawsuit, had a settlement with the NFL. Nobody knows how much money he got.
$10 million.
Because I heard it was $10 million.
$10 million.
Right, but no, but how to state no. But well, if it leaked, I'm just saying, because when they were talking about he can't talk about the money, he couldn't talk about what he got when it was out.
I don't know if there was an NDA or not, non-disclosure agreement, but I heard $10 million. That's what I heard.
Yeah. Okay.
And really quick before I let Ruthie go, here's what I want to say to you. So Shannon did talk to Drew Brees over the weekend. Shannon Sharp did talk to Drew Brees over the weekend, and the two of them have found a way to fix whatever their problem was. Because you're absolutely right. Shannon, along with other players, did verbally and on social media just go after Drew Brees. And I understand, as a black man, I understand where that anger came from, especially with everything that he has done for New Orleans.
Right.
Forget about the Saints. New Orleans as a whole.
Yes, absolutely.
Everything that he has done. So should cooler heads have prevailed? I agree with you, Mike. They should have. However, in this time frame, I cannot sit here and say to you that every single black man is going to react in a professional manner, because here is the thing that I have continually said. It took a global pandemic and no sports for finally there to be a true window of opportunity for Black people to be heard about something that they've had to deal with for centuries. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole. I just wanted to get your thought and opinion, and I have it. Ruth, let me ask you, at this particular juncture, if you're Drew Brees, how, aside from the apologies and having to defend yourself and your wife saying what she said on social media, how do you fix this so that the New Orleans Saints are still a top contender in the NFL?
He joins his teammates in kneeling for the national anthem day one of the NFL. That's how he makes up for it. That's how he lets his fellow teammates and brothers know that he understands why they do what they do. The other day, I was listening to the Dan Patrick podcast, and it was talking about Drew Brees and the post that he did and how his apology. Dan Patrick went and investigated and found a interview with Drew Brees where he literally almost said word for word the exact comments that he made about the American flag. So he pointed out the fact, like, okay, Drew Brees felt the same way back in 2016 that he does now in 2020. So why right now is he getting so much backlash over comments that he made in 2016? To my point is times are different. The situation is different. What happened, what transpired 2 weeks ago with George Floyd has sent the world into the rabbit hole for the whole social injustice cause. So that's why people are making it a big deal of what Drew Brees says. Do I accept his apology? I do. I felt at first he was very sensitive with how he came out and what he said. But I think he did a good job by apologizing and then making that comment to our president of the United States, letting him know, like, hey, this is why I felt the way I felt before. But now that I'm educated, I stand by my brothers.
So you're saying week 1 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, game of the week, if there was ever a platform for Drew Brees, it is that time. You're saying he should take a knee with his fellow brothers to just kind of, I don't want to say squash the situation because I don't ever want it to get squashed,
Right.
But at least for that moment, make another statement that's going to show, but the thing is, and we know this to be true, and Mike, I can tell by your facial expression you don't agree with this, because then that's just Drew, is it him just meandering and catering to the majority on this one? And
well,
I don't mean
that, but I think it is that in a way, but it goes back to, if we're all going to sit and have a healthy conversation. See, this is the thing, like, and you know me, I call it the Yelp syndrome. Like, once Yelp became famous, everybody thinks, like, all of a sudden, if they give a review on something, their opinion, it's like the end all be all. So I can support what you do. I can go out and do things. But if a group, or you're saying people, whatever, if they're going to attack somebody, and I'm not saying this is why Drew Brees, again, the way he answered it, I agree. I think it is a teeny bit tone deaf. But for anyone that says, oh, well, he doesn't care about social injustice, that's what I don't get. Like, you're saying, okay, I have to do it your way. You're going to push me into a corner. I do it your way, or I don't believe in your cause. So I'm not saying he can't have a healthy discussion. And yeah, maybe he does need to look how he says certain things. But Eric, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, the man has dumped, and yes, he has made a ton of money, but you don't always, Drew Brees is one of the dudes that the camera is not always on. I mean, I know in COVID, him and his wife gave another $5 million for the meals things, but I mean, he's dumped millions of dollars into New Orleans. And again, like I said, it doesn't make it right. I'm not sitting here defending. It's like the old adage. It's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Exactly.
I know, like with my I would go out to anything, and not just because I'm talking to you, but I would go out to anything with you and for you. But the way I was brought up with my grandpa serving, like, I'm not kneeling during the national anthem. But it doesn't mean that I think that there doesn't need to be a healthy, mature, responsible conversation with, like you said, cooler heads. And yeah, people are going to get frustrated. And like I said to you and Alex, I mean, to me, it's pathetic in 2020. it hasn't. I mean, from 1960 to 2020, you're telling me, like, I get it. There's going to be bad eggs out there and people that want to spread a terrible message. But it's just the whole, like, when they say, you know, anti-bullying or anything, like, as a kid, like, when you see some kid getting bullied, like, which kid stands up for him? Like, if he's not, if he's too scared to stand up for himself, like, again, him or herself, like, I mean, people see it all the time, and it's like, oh, we applaud this, we applaud that. But, oh, if you're not going to do it my way, and that's what I call the Yelp syndrome. Like, okay, I respect you have an opinion, right, wrong, or indifferent. I have mine. But I'm not kneeling for – even when, like I said, Colin Kaepernick, when I had you on the show, you know me. I supported his statement of what he was saying because he was right. But I'm still not kneeling for the anthem.
And you know what, Mike, and that's exactly your opinion. I think the easiest way to kind of stick a pin in this for now and move on, you know, you want to end. I've seen this over the past couple of days, and I think this holds very true. You want to end racism and you want to end the social injustice. Here's one way of doing it. Instead of saying a black man was murdered by a corrupt white cop, you say a man was murdered by a corrupt cop. And you don't put a race in it, because this is going to get talked about, and we know this. And I definitely want to move on because, like I said, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole. I've had enough conversations with it, and I'm going to have even more conversations with it. But this is the sports arena. We are going to talk sports. We are going to talk about, because sports is starting to come back.
Yes.
But I thank you both for giving me that moment to have this conversation. Let's transition over to the NBA, because the more and more July 31st gets closer, and I know we're about a month and a half away from it, the more excited I get. I had a very interesting conversation with a colleague, a source, if you will, that both Ruth and I know, and they talked to me a little bit about our last conversation when we were talking about, you know, establishing media credentials and why it was the wild world of sports and everything. And the one thing they said that I didn't really resonate with, a couple of things, but the biggest piece was, one of the reasons why the wild world of sports was chosen was because they have the fiber optic capability to broadcast these games over multiple networks. So, Mike, you know what? Yes, sir, I have to agree with you in that. I think I may owe you some White Castle or something. I think you're right under the sense that they can do it in such a way to where the post-game conferences are going to be, even the pre-games are going to be more of a Zoom meeting or whatever it is, such as this. And the one piece of information that I thought was very interesting was, because we were talking about how do you keep the players and the coaches and everybody safe? One solution, and this is what our source said to me, was the players would get dressed in their hotel room.
Mm-hmm.
They would get on the bus, go over to the facility, play the game, and then return back to the hotel and basically shower back in their hotel room. And then whoever was there to, you know, pick up their uniforms and stuff like that would then gather it there, as opposed to them showering in these locker rooms, because then, you know, you got to be socially distant, and it's keeping the players healthy so that the NBA puts the best product out there. With that being said, Ruth, what is your opinion of that?
I believe that if that's the best way that they can, best plan that they can come up with to make sure that they're keeping the staff and the players safe, by all means, have them take showers in their hotel rooms. But I just hope that they could still figure out how to safely be able to allow the media to still do our jobs of broadcasting these playoff games. Whatever they come up with, they need to figure out some way for us to, you know, be able to be a part of that playoff NBA magic, you know?
I agree. Mike?
Eric, I didn't want to really win. I said the White Castle is, you might not get a credential, but if you put in, you have to put in me with the sports arena, and I'll make my way out there.
Yeah.
I said I would.
That being said, though, like, Vegas to me was a pipe dream. Look, Vegas wants people there. I mean, I know this got squashed really quick, but in the beginning, you and I were on the phone actually talking one night, remember? And I said, can you believe Vegas they actually had the nerve to ask for money.
Yes,
I
know.
So they want people there, whether it's in phase 1 or 2. Like, people are starting to come back, obviously, with that. Disney made sense just because, like I said, I mean, I've been by it. Unfortunately, I've been in Orlando, but I haven't been to that area. But that being said, like, it makes sense. And yeah, the showers at the hotel, I mean, that's, and if a player, have their warm-ups and they're just going back and forth and they're fine, like, yeah, I mean, I think, plus, like, once a team loses, like, they're out of there. So I just think that they want to do it right. I know, because especially looking, and again, not going on that, but just listen to what a lot of like local health officials and even like Dr. Fauci saying, with a lot of people protesting, there might be a spike.
Yeah.
So we'll see if there's a spike in the COVID. But that being said, like, Disney, it makes sense, man. It's a great, I mean, I Google mapped it. It's obviously, having been there, but I mean, it's an awesome facility. Like you said, I didn't know that broadcast part, that they had the hookups to
the fiber optics,
the fiber optics to do it. So, I mean, I knew that obviously they had advanced stuff, but that being said, like, it makes sense. Because then it just becomes a point of, if you're the NBA, you still want to be the good guy. I mean, credentials, obviously, as long as you're doing a job, they're solid, and they're pretty liberal with the credentials. But, again, they don't want to have to decide, like I said, especially when you're talking markets like LA. So now you have the Clippers and the Lakers beat writer, and then the athletic writer for the Clippers and Lakers. Like, everybody's not getting to go. And so, which sucks, because I'm with you and Ruthie on it. Of course, like, yeah, I was saying this to you guys the other night, like, yeah, I want it to be like, okay, we can go. But, I just think that it makes sense that, like, when I looked at the Disney layout and then now seeing that. And so, yeah, I mean, I just think, like we said, I think some games will be going on at the same time. So you're going to have to choose as to which one you want to watch, whether, it's on TNT or, obviously ESPN and ABC are one and the same. But, I mean, it's a great fit there. Basketball, like I said, has it right. Like I said, it sucks because, like I said, I wanted to be wrong, but I just think that local, and even if they say, hey, and this could actually benefit you guys too, because I thought about this when we finished up the other night. It could benefit both of you, Mo and Jake too. Like, we don't want anybody that hasn't been here locally. So yeah, we get players are coming in, but that could be like freelance gigs for other people. Like, contact, like, somebody's going to be, covering a team. They're going to reach out to local sports people. So that would be awesome for you guys. I just think that we have to be smart about it. And like you said in the beginning, I mean, if there's no vaccine yet, like, yeah, we're getting closer. And yes, people have gotten it. And I mean, unfortunately, there's been like one death is too many, but just an insane amount of deaths from this. So it's like, you have to be smart about it. But I think as we like head into it through the summer, I don't think the virus will spread much here when it's 120 out, 110, 115 every other day. So,
right.
But yeah, I mean, Disney's awesome. So I like it.
Believe me, we are looking at different avenues. I've had several conversations just this evening alone on different angles of how to find a way to get ourselves in there, because, to your point, granted, these other teams have these beat writers and people who work for the organization who are more in depth with the team, but you don't want this cluster of individuals coming from all walks of life coming into Orlando, where, we've seen, even going into phase 2, like Ruth mentioned, that, we are still seeing more people who are being exposed to this. So if we can quarantine it and keep it in a bubble and make it work to where we're still putting out the best product, I completely agree with you. Ruth, I'm going to give you the final word on this one when it comes to the NBA and this whole process, and then I do want to transition over to Mike in basketball.
You want to overall, NBA's playoffs are happening. 2020 season is going to have a champion at the end. Disney being the location for the playoffs, obviously the fiber optic capabilities that are going to allow us to broadcast these games across all networks. So let's get this started. I'm excited.
Awesome. Talking with, of course, my girl Ruth the Truth, Ruth Caguias, Sports Talk Florida, and of course Mike Carotenuto, NBC Sports Radio 1060, the Sports Hangover in Arizona. So Mike, you are definitely the baseball guy of this group tonight. So I'm going to definitely move and defer to you on this one, because at one point they weren't going to have a season. Then they were talking about having a 114 game season. Now we've got it down to 76 games. I mean, what's going on here?
Well, yeah, the owners said 50 to 60 because of the money, like I said, and Jake would probably be better for this one because you know me, like baseball and the pecking order, it's not the highest, but inevitably they wanted the players said 114 games, and with prorated salaries, they'd still get a huge amount of their salary. The owners came back with 50 to 60. The players, of course, shot that down. And now the owners came back with, and the players have to approve it, but from what I read, when it broke 76 games, they get 75% of their prorated salary. So it's like over like $1 billion, like whatever it is, it's ridiculous. The number's astronomical.
So Ruth, I mean, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, listen, we are so into basketball and of course the NFL that we kind of, like Mike, we kind of put baseball in that third or even fourth spot. Maybe we put it below hockey. I don't know. But just in a general standpoint, to be able to bring this much amount of sports back. Go ahead.
I think the MLB needs to do what they can do to keep baseball alive. But baseball is considered one of those dying sports that people don't usually watch on TV as much as they do the NFL and the NBA. So they need to get their ducks in a row. They need to have a starting date. They need to start a schedule. They need to get the ball rolling so they can keep up with the NFL, NBA, and the other leagues that are getting the ball rolling after this COVID-19. I hope that the Player Association and the owners can come to an agreement, and I'm hoping this 76 game proposal, I mean, it looks good. They're still getting 75% of their prorated salaries. I mean, let's see what they say.
But you talk about like, and we crush like, and Eric knows, like, I never side with, it's tough to side with either one. When a player holds out and he's under contract, it annoys me because if I was an owner, I'm like, you sign the deal. When owners are, you know, in negotiations and the players, you know, holding out because they're like, I'm not coming in until this is done. Or obviously if they're, you know, especially in football, that drives me nuts. But baseball, to me, the players, like, no matter what they say, and I'm not saying they're not all bad guys or bad people, but they're the most tone-deaf sport ever because they're players union. And people have said it forever, but it's true. I mean, you look at negotiations and how baseball players want things. Like, they've had guaranteed contracts since the 80s, if I recall. Yeah. So they're I mean, maybe mid-80s, I don't know. But I'm just saying, like, it's one of those, or even the 94 when they walked out on that World Series. But that being said, like, you are so tone deaf. And even Clayton Kershaw said it, like, yeah, if we can come back and give people, you know, we want to have fans here, obviously, but, you know, if we can't, like, we need baseball back. And he's, you know, he tap danced around it, but he's saying it's like, you can't complain about, and again, the owners can't have an article out there saying, oh, we're losing all this money. Yeah, you know, the 30 million people that didn't work for like 4 months, that had to like beg for unemployment and stuff like that.
And really still don't have it, and some people still don't have it. Yeah,
exactly. Thank you. Yeah. So baseball to me always comes across like, yeah, good for the players, because again, nobody's going to see an owner. But if all three of us own a team and we go bankrupt, guess what? Players going to play for somebody else.
Right.
Like, we're not owning a team at that point for a while, man. But that being said, like, baseball always comes across tone deaf. So I hope the players can just ratify this. Again, you know, if basketball, and they're not going to have the summer to themselves, so that'll be very interesting too, because when you talk about ratings, again, Stanley Cup playoffs, look, I know you guys love hoops, but Stanley Cup playoffs, like, the electricity is –
We get it, Mike. We get it. That's your
anyway,
game.
But that being said, like, oh, fine, negative Nancy over there. But anyway, it's one of those things where it's so frustrating because it's like, okay, I mean, 76 games, if you're the owners, like, play 81, 5 more games. So you got 81 games. It's half a season. They agreed on 75% of their prorated salaries. So it's like, you know, and the concession workers aren't getting to come back. So I got an idea. These greedy players, and I will call them greedy since guaranteed, they should all have to put in like $1,000 each for all the people that can't come to work.
Yeah.
Because I know some people donated early on and some organizations did, so I'm not ripping everyone. But I got an idea. The people that work the summers, I mean, come on. You're in Chicago and you get to sell beer or anything walking around. Like, guess what? You're making a hell of a lot of money that summer.
Yeah.
Like, it's just always like that. So baseball just always comes across tone deaf. I mean, NASCAR, obviously, international soccer paved the way too. I know, because I know I mentioned Germany, but like Italy and Spain are getting games going this week.
Yeah.
So, and they haven't obviously played since March. And the fact that Italy is, I mean, again, they got hit as bad as China. And I mean, the final numbers there, I mean, or the updated numbers, I didn't look at in a little bit. I've talked to some of my family that's still there. And I mean, they're okay, but it's insane. But they're actually getting back with no fans. So, I mean, you got to get going, or seriously, if you don't, good luck getting people to come back next year. That's all I'm saying.
People aren't going to come back. The people aren't going to come back, and they're going to have to rely on that TV money. I mean, listen, Manfred said they stand to lose, and I know you don't like talking about it, and I agree with you. I think it's ridiculous, but Manfred says they stand to lose about $4 billion.
$4 billion?
The owners, because the fans not being in the stands.
Because you got to figure concession, merch, food, the whole 9 yards.
Ticket sales,
Ticket sales,
yeah,
right.
like $4.5
I'm really
billion.
curious of how the setup is going to be for these games. Like, is it just going to be normal? Like, one team traveling to this next city? Like, how are they going to?
I don't know.
I wonder if it's going to be like a tournament
that's
style.
What I wanted to see, because they said more supposed to come out on it, and since it's obviously earlier here on the left coast, I was definitely gonna look tonight and see if I could read more, and then obviously checking what I see on TV too, and hear what other final reports. But yeah, because I mean, you figure division opponents play each other 19 times. So if there's 5 teams in your division, you're playing the other 4 19 times. That's 76 games right there. So obviously you're not going to play your division opponents that much, but you have to play your division opponents more than you play out of division. So is it going to be 50 games in division, which would be nothing, and then 26 games out? So I mean, it'll be interesting to see. That there'll be a little creativity. I didn't think about that, Ruth. That's a good point, because obviously basketball's playing in one spot.
Yeah.
Football, I mean, football is obviously planning on traveling. So baseball is I mean, NASCAR is obviously traveling. I know you guys are big NASCAR fans, as we discovered last time, but NASCAR is traveling. So to me, it's one of those things where, if you're baseball, I'm sorry, yes, it does suck to lose money. I know, nobody wants to, like I said, if the owners lose money and go bankrupt, okay, guess what? I know they're not, but at the same time, you still don't need to put that out there when 33 million people are out of work.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, come back, play the games, however it looks. And they said, the thing I actually did although I know because 162 games, I think there should have been, but they said up to 8 teams can go to the playoffs, but it's per MLB discretion. So I want to find out more what that means, because they said up to 8 teams can make the playoffs. So I don't know in each league. So is it because they're cutting it short? So we'll see if any cool changes come out of it. But yeah, if baseball does this, like I said, I could have cared less.
What if this pandemic sends us into this whole different time where just sports are just evolving and we're just going to be doing things differently now?
Right. Well, isn't it
imagine
crazy,
if we started playing the NBA playoffs every year at Disney, at Wildwater Sports every year?
Yeah, the owners would never vote for that, because they want the money in their arenas in their state. But you're right.
But okay, Mike, hold on to that.
We're going to have year-round sports pretty much for the next year and a half.
Yeah, you're right.
There's going to be sports year-round.
But Mike,
on a professional level.
Yeah.
Professional level.
But to your point about that, something else that I just remembered was, these owners, they're renting these stadiums. They're under contract to these stadiums. So that's a really good point about not having the playoffs and everything all in one central location, because by doing this, the owners who are using Madison Square Garden and the Staples Center and Spectrum Stadium, they sign a contract to produce X number of games. And then if the games go over, then, it's bonuses and things like that.
Well, right, but don't. So I know Mark Cuban owns the stadium.
He's probably the only one who owns Mavericks, where the Mavericks play. But you know, some of these other owners, they don't own. Like we don't know who owns the stadium. I'll tell you right now, the Bus family doesn't own the Staples Center, do they? I don't think they do.
I don't think so.
Right.
You know what? I have to look. I'm not going to speak out of turn because you bring up an interesting point. Like, I know, I mean, in football, like when they build even like stadiums and arenas, but you figure it's like, oh, but it's the team money. So it's like they are. But yeah, I'd have to look into that. That's an actually interesting. I'll actually have more homework to do. Thanks a lot. But yeah, no, but I mean, I just think that you want, like I said, once the calendar turns, and I literally think because of what's been going on, obviously with, you know, doctors and I mean, labs and labs that have been built and getting closer to, I mean, each day we're obviously getting closer to a vaccination. Yeah. I mean, even if it was 13 months and you said like they started in March, so that would be next April. So you're figuring 10 months from now, but I just think it could be even sooner. And once people start getting it, I mean, yeah, it'll change the landscape. I think again with, you know, adding teams real quick, I mean, even with basketball, it kind of frustrates me because I think, again, I understand why, and I've said to you guys both before that, yeah, they needed to play some games. I mean, we're not idiots. They can't just like, oh, go to a training camp and all of a sudden, okay, here's the first point onto the playoffs. Like that would look terrible. And we know it. But at the same time, like I just, with like, you know, you can do little things and change it up, but I don't know. I don't mind change if it's improvement, but I think it'll be interesting to see how, especially basketball wise, like taking the, you know, and even with hockey, taking 24 teams. I mean, I understand playing, but I just think it should have been 16, and that's that. You know, for other teams, I get it. It does suck. But like we talked about last week, you're not going to the playoffs anyway. You've been home since like February 1st. So basically, like, you shouldn't get to play.
Yeah.
But, I mean, again, it's –
Listen, it's what they put in place.
Right.
It's what they put in place. We'll see what happens on this. Great discussion, you two. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Ruth the Truth, Ruth Caguias, Sports Talk Florida, 1040, and my man Michael Carotenuto, NBC Sports Radio, 1060, a sports hangover out there in Arizona. Your man Eric Wilson, Sports Arena. This conversation, ladies and gentlemen, is far from over, so make sure y'all stay tuned. We'll be back